Imagine a world where horror doesn't hide in abandoned buildings or dark alleys, a world where the most unspeakable crimes happen not on the streets, but in a place most of us trust, on a device we hold in our hands. A place where strangers can control your life without ever seeing your face, where every secret you hold becomes a weapon, and where fear is delivered not by a person standing over you, but by someone sitting behind a screen. This was the reality in South Korea, a reality known as the Nth Room. It started quietly, almost innocently, a chat, a stranger, a promise. The victims were targeted online, and at first it seemed harmless. Some were approached under the guise of modelling opportunities, others were lured with fake job offers. Most were young, some mere children, naive and trusting. Their interactions began as casual conversations, but they soon escalated into something darker, something far beyond what anyone could have imagined. The perpetrators didn't just steal their victims' data, they stole their identities, their dignity, their very control over themselves. Photos, videos, personal chats, all weaponized. And then came the blackmail. If you don't obey, your parents will see everything. Your friends will see everything. Your life will be destroyed. The victims complied. They had no choice. The Nth Room wasn't a single group. It was a network, meticulously structured. Telegram, the messaging app where this all took place, allowed encrypted communications. It was considered safe, even normal, used by millions daily. But in this case, Telegram became a tool for pure evil. Admins of these rooms were not amateurs. They were methodical, calculating, smart. They had a hierarchy, roles, and rules. Some were called doctors, others, in the most infamous rooms, were called God. There were two types of rooms, doctors' rooms and Nth Rooms. The doctors' rooms were expensive, exclusive, paid for in cryptocurrency, and often designed for higher-tier viewers. The Nth Rooms were limitless, boundless, where the worst horrors unfolded. There were no limits to the torture, no moral boundary too extreme. Victims were forced to follow strict schedules, wake up at a specific time, wear certain clothes, perform every movement in front of a camera. Proof had to be submitted constantly. Failure to comply meant exposure, humiliation, and threats against their families. These weren't vague warnings, they were promises backed by stolen data, private chats, and hacked social media accounts. The torture was systematic. Victims were coerced into acts that most people can't even imagine. Self-harm, marking words onto their own skin, using needles or knives in the most private of ways, performing acts in public, all while being recorded. Every single act became content for the viewers, every failure a tool for blackmail. Some victims were forced to sign slave contracts, legal documents in which they surrendered full control of their lives to the admins. Most who signed were minors. At 12, 13, 14 years old, they had no real comprehension of the trap they were walking into. Once signed, the admins had total control. Their schedules, their actions, their bodies, their finances, everything. And the viewers, the subscribers, were complicit. Some were minors themselves, some adults. They consumed the abuse, shared it, paid for it, and in doing so, pushed the abuse further. Each new video had to be worse than the last. Each new act more shocking, more humiliating, more gruesome. One girl, 16 years old, became a victim in one of the Nth Rooms. Her Instagram was hacked, private chats with her boyfriend stolen, messages detailing private thoughts, her emotions, her trust, all weaponized against her. The admin contacted her directly, obey, or everyone will know everything. She complied. She carved words into her own skin. She filmed acts she never thought she would be forced to do. But it didn't stop there. The admin threatened to share her address with viewers. Strangers would know where she lived. They could come to her home. She was trapped in a nightmare with no escape. The depression she suffered was intense. She attempted to end her life. She survived, but the trauma stayed with her for months, even years. Therapy helped, but it could never fully erase the fear, the shame, the helplessness. This was just one story. Hundreds, if not thousands, more followed. Official reports identified over 100 victims, 26 of whom were minors. The actual number? Likely in the thousands. One of the youngest was 12 years old. Many videos included child sexual abuse, forced acts with animals, and escalating cruelty designed to push the limits of human suffering. The two main perpetrators had very different motivations. Cho Ju-bin, known as Doctor, was motivated by money. He wanted wealth, and he exploited human suffering to get it. Moon Young-wook, or God, was different. Money meant nothing to him. He was driven by control, pleasure, and the thrill of watching lives crumble. For him, the creation of these rooms, the luring of victims, and the recording and sharing of their torture was a passion, a dark obsession. Power became an addiction, control over the helpless, watching fear take root in someone's eyes. For God, it was intoxicating. The admins operated with absolute precision. Anyone loyal enough could be promoted from viewer to admin, creating a self-sustaining hierarchy of perpetrators. Some were minors themselves, as young as 18, given control over new recruits. They replicated the system, recruiting friends, forcing them into the same twisted web. The victims were constantly reminded of the stakes. Do as we say, or your life will end. Every secret, every personal detail will be revealed to everyone you love. Some victims were even forced into real-life meetings, where abuse was carried out physically. The level of control was total. The terror was relentless. Telegram's encryption ensured that messages could not be intercepted. Admins hid behind VPNs, multiple accounts, and cryptocurrency payments, erasing every digital trace. Even when caught, they tried to destroy evidence. Every precaution was taken to remain invisible, to operate in a vacuum of secrecy. This is why it took so long for the full extent of the Nth Rooms to be discovered. The victims were trapped, the admins untouchable, and the viewers complicit but hidden behind screens. In 2019, a small investigative team called Team Flame infiltrated the rooms. Using fake accounts, 2 university students posed as viewers to collect evidence, talk to admins, and listen to victims' stories. Their findings were staggering. Once the evidence went public, outrage spread across South Korea. 250,000 viewers had access. 1 in every 100 people in the country was part of this network. The scale was unimaginable. The story dominated headlines, sparking anger, fear, and disbelief. Cho Ju-bin, the doctor, was arrested and sentenced to 42 years in prison. Moon Young-wook, God, received 34 years. 17 others were arrested, including several minor admins. The victims received counselling, but the trauma was permanent. Families were destroyed, careers ended, lives shattered. PTSD became common among survivors. The case revealed not just the horrors inflicted by the admins, but the extent to which ordinary people enabled the abuse. The viewers, subscribers, and those who paid were complicit. They consumed evil as entertainment. Even after the arrests, South Korea continues to struggle with digital sex crimes. Over 6,000 cases are reported each year, yet only 10% lead to convictions. The Nth Room case remains a warning about technology in the wrong hands, the power of human corruption, and the limits of society's ability to protect the vulnerable. The Nth Room was not just a crime against individuals, it was a crime against humanity, showing what can happen when anonymity, greed, obsession, and cruelty converge. The Nth Room is a story about control, power, and the darkest corners of the human mind. It's a reminder that the tools we use daily, phones, apps, encrypted messages, can be turned into instruments of terror. It's a warning: always be cautious, always watch, always question. The next horror could be just a click away. And sometimes, the most dangerous people are the ones who sit silently behind a screen, watching, waiting, deciding who will suffer next. This is the Nth Room, South Korea's digital hell, and it could happen anywhere.